They will never respect you until you respect yourself first. Respect is not begged for, it's commanded. The man who treats himself with indifference, who compromises his own worth, teaches the world exactly how to treat him, carelessly. But the one who enforces his standards within, who refuses to bend for weakness or laziness, radiates an aura that cannot be dismissed. Machiavelli knew this. People follow strength, not pity. They follow certainty, not hesitation. When you carry yourself with the authority of someone who knows his own value, you create an atmosphere where others instinctively adjust their tone, their words, even their presence in your company. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't scream or beg for validation. It's the quiet weight in your shoulders, the firmness in your voice, the stillness in your eyes that tells the world, I am not moved easily. That's why self-respect is the foundation of power. It makes you untouchable. You're no longer desperate for approval because you approve of yourself first. And that shift changes everything. People listen closer. Opportunities open wider. Even enemies hesitate because they sense you are not a man who can be broken with whispers or doubt. If you want the world to take you seriously, you must first sharpen yourself into someone impossible to ignore. Train your body until it reflects discipline. Train your mind until it reflects clarity. Train your habits until they reflect consistency, because every detail of how you carry yourself tells the world exactly how much to value you. Respect yourself so ruthlessly that others have no choice but to comply. Comment below, I bow to no one. Number 1. The weight of self-respect. Power begins with how you treat yourself. Before a single word is spoken, before anyone knows your story, they feel the energy you carry. Self-respect is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the discipline of living in a way that honors your own value. When you train your body, refine your words, and master your emotions, you project a presence that cannot be ignored. People don't follow titles, they follow strength of character. And when you embody respect for yourself, the world naturally mirrors it back to you. Understand this. Every decision you make either reinforces or erodes your respect for yourself. The food you eat, the company you keep, the way you carry yourself in silence, all of it sends a message to your subconscious, and your subconscious broadcasts that message to the world. If you settle for less, the world gives you less. If you demand excellence from yourself, the world raises its standards around you. Machiavelli's wisdom was simple. Power begins in perception, but true power begins in how you perceive yourself. When you see yourself as worthy, capable, disciplined, the world has no choice but to adjust. You become the measure. You become the standard. And people will feel it without you saying a word. The weight of self-respect is not heavy. It liberates. It frees you from chasing approval, from bending to every passing opinion, from needing to explain your worth. You simply are. And that kind of presence cannot be denied, cannot be faked, and cannot be ignored. Carry yourself as if your life has consequence, because it does. Every moment you live with self-respect, you sharpen the blade of your influence, and soon that blade cuts through every barrier in your path. Comment below, my presence carries weight. Number 2, the discipline of power. Strength is not found in sudden bursts of passion. It's carved day by day, decision by decision. The world often celebrates intensity, but true power belongs to the disciplined. Discipline is the purest form of self-respect because it proves that you are willing to command yourself before you even attempt to command the world. A man who cannot govern his own impulses will forever be enslaved by them. But the man who holds the reins of his own desires becomes unstoppable. Think about it. Every time you rise early when your body begs for sleep, you build strength. Every time you train your body while others waste time, you forge endurance. Every time you remain calm when chaos erupts around you, you establish unshakable presence. These are not random habits. These are declarations. They announce silently but powerfully, I am in command. Machiavelli understood the psychology of rulers. He observed that consistency, not charm, creates lasting influence. People may admire a moment of brilliance, but they follow the man who does not falter. Discipline makes you predictable in the way a fortress is predictable, unmoving, reliable, and safe to align with. The disciplined man does not sway in storms. He does not yield to passing emotions. He is rooted, and that rootedness creates authority. But understand this clearly: discipline is not punishment. Weak men see it as chains, but in reality, it is liberation. Discipline frees you from the prison of distraction, from the tyranny of your own cravings, from the traps of laziness and doubt. It gives you the rare ability to choose your path with clarity, while others are blown in every direction by their urges. When you live disciplined, you are free to build, free to grow, free to expand beyond the limits that consume the ordinary. Every disciplined act is a blade you sharpen. With each repetition in the gym, you forge resilience. With every page you read, you carve wisdom. With every skill you refine, you build leverage. And over time, these blades come together into an arsenal. When the world tests you, that arsenal cuts through resistance effortlessly. Ask yourself, do your daily actions honor the man you claim to be? Do they align with the future you say you want? If not, you are living a lie. But if yes, if you keep the contract with yourself, you become untouchable, because a man who keeps promises to himself cannot be broken by anyone else. So live as if you are forging an empire, your empire. Every habit is a brick, every choice is mortar, every sacrifice is a wall rising higher. And once that empire is built, the world will not just respect you, it will orbit around you. Comment below, I command myself first. Number 3, the silence of power. Silence is the weapon of those who know their own strength. Noise is the language of the insecure. Men who must prove themselves with endless chatter, hollow boasting, or desperate explanations. But the man of silence is different. He speaks only when necessary, and when he does, his words land like iron. This is because his silence has already spoken for him. His presence, his discipline, his composure. They do the talking long before his mouth ever opens. Think of kings, generals, or leaders of consequence. The ones remembered across centuries are not those who spoke the most, but those who carried an aura so heavy that silence itself became their message. Machiavelli observed that men are judged more by what they appear to be than by what they are, and silence shapes appearance like nothing else. The less you reveal, the more others imagine. The less you give away, the more they wonder. Mystery is power, and silence is its armor. But silence is not just the absence of words, it is the mastery of restraint. When you do not react instantly, you hold the upper hand. When others try to provoke you, and you answer with calm stillness, you become untouchable. Imagine a man insulted, ridiculed, or tested. If he lashes out, he confirms weakness. But if he remains still, composed, and silent, he demonstrates a strength that cannot be shaken. People fear what they cannot predict. They respect what they cannot disturb. Silence also forces you inward, while others scatter their energy outward, explaining, defending, arguing. You conserve yours. That energy compounds. It builds clarity of thought, precision in action, and weight in presence. This is why those who train silence train power itself. They are not distracted by noise because they no longer need to win the petty battles of words. They win the larger war of perception. The truth is, silence amplifies everything else about you. If you are disciplined, silence magnifies it. If you are confident, silence strengthens it. If you are wise, silence deepens it. The world leans in closer to hear what you will say because you don't waste your voice on triviality. And when you finally speak, it carries authority. It carries consequence. But let's be clear, silence does not mean weakness, passivity, or indifference. It is not submission. It is choice. It is you deciding that your energy, your words, your time are not freely available for anyone to consume. You give them only when it serves you, when it builds, when it aligns with your vision. That is power. The man who speaks only with purpose becomes a man whose words reshape his environment. Consider this. The world is flooded with noise. Social feeds, endless opinions, meaningless debates. Everyone is desperate to be heard, yet few have anything worth saying. Amid this chaos, the man who stands in silence commands more respect than the one who screams for it, because silence is rare and rarity is always valuable. This is why silence should be part of your strategy. It strengthens your presence, sharpens your influence, and protects your energy. You don't need to chase validation, because silence itself demands attention. You don't need to defend your worth, because silence itself displays it. You don't need to argue your power, because silence itself proves it. In silence, you become a fortress, unmoved, unbothered, undeniable. And from that fortress, you can observe everything, choose your moments, and strike only when it matters. That is cold power psychology. That is how you become untouchable. Comment below. My silence speaks louder than words. Number 4, the art of boundaries. Boundaries are the architecture of respect. Without them, your life becomes an open field where anyone can wander, take what they want, and leave without consequence. But with them, you build walls that protect your value, gates that decide who may enter, and towers that allow you to see clearly what belongs and what doesn't. Boundaries are not about shutting the world out. They are about defining your worth so powerfully that the world cannot ignore it. The truth is this: people treat you according to the standards you enforce. If you allow disrespect, you invite it. If you tolerate mediocrity, you normalize it. If you remain silent when your value is undermined, you teach others that your value is negotiable. But when you draw firm lines, when you make it clear what is acceptable and what is not, you become a force others cannot casually tamper with. Respect, like power, thrives in clarity. Machiavelli would remind us that men are not guided by goodwill, but by necessity. If you do not make your boundaries necessary, others will trample them without guilt. Not because they hate you, but because human nature pursues advantage. Boundaries are the way you train the world to understand. This is where I begin, and this is where you end. Without them, you will always live on someone else's terms. But let's strip away the philosophy and look at reality. Boundaries begin in the smallest details: the way you let people speak to you, the way you manage your time, the way you refuse to betray your own principles just to fit in. Each time you enforce those boundaries, you reinforce your self-respect. And with every reinforcement, your presence grows heavier, your influence sharper, your life more aligned. Boundaries also define how you treat yourself. If you say you will train at dawn and you betray that promise to sleep in, you have crossed your own line. That breach weakens you. But when you guard your commitments as sacred, when you treat your word as unbreakable law, you transform yourself into a man others instinctively trust. Because if you cannot violate your own boundaries, why would you tolerate theirs being violated? This is integrity forged through discipline, and integrity is power. Understand something vital. Boundaries are not anger, they are clarity. They don't require shouting, threats, or displays of aggression. In fact, the strongest boundaries are enforced with calm certainty. You simply do not bend. If someone pushes past the line, you don't beg them to respect it. You remove access. That's it. Simple, final, cold. And this is why boundaries command respect. They show that your self-worth is not a topic of debate. Many men fear boundaries because they fear losing people. But here is the paradox. When you lack boundaries, you lose yourself. And when you lose yourself, you lose everything worth having. The respect of others means nothing if you do not respect your own limits first. Boundaries filter your circle. They push away the weak, the parasitic, the ones who seek to drain you. But they attract the strong, the disciplined, the aligned. In drawing lines, you do not shrink your world, you sharpen it. Think of a blade. Its power comes not from being everywhere at once, but from being sharpened at one edge. That edge is your boundary. The sharper you make it, the deeper your influence cuts. If you blur it, if you dull it, your life becomes blunt, unable to penetrate, unable to command. But the man who sharpens his edge daily, who defines himself with clarity and guards himself with firmness, becomes a weapon in his own right. The world doesn't test him lightly. This doesn't mean isolation. Boundaries are not walls of fear, they are walls of sovereignty. They allow you to give freely without being exploited, to connect without being consumed, to lead without being weakened. They are the structure within which you can build an empire. Without them, your empire collapses before it's even constructed. With them, you build something unshakable. And here lies the darkest wisdom. People will respect you only to the extent that you respect your own boundaries. If you abandon them when challenged, if you lower them out of desperation for approval, if you compromise them to avoid conflict, you lose. Not just their respect, but your own. But if you guard them relentlessly, even if it costs you comfort, even if it costs you relationships, even if it costs you acceptance, you win. Because what remains is pure, unshakable power. Set boundaries in your words. Set them in your actions. Set them in your silence. Let the world know, this is who I am, and this is the ground I will never surrender. Boundaries make you sovereign over your life, and sovereignty is the only true form of respect worth having. Comment below. My lines are law. Number 5. The value of detachment. Detachment is the crown jewel of self-respect. It is the art of holding power without clinging, of walking away without hesitation, of never allowing your peace to depend on anything outside yourself. Men who cannot detach are prisoners, prisoners of people, of outcomes, of fleeting emotions. But the man who has mastered detachment is free. And freedom, in its purest form, is power. Think carefully. What weakens most men? Not lack of ability, not lack of intelligence, but attachment. Attachment to approval, attachment to comfort, attachment to relationships that drain them. They cling to things they cannot control, and in that clinging they lose themselves. Machiavelli warned that fortune favors those who can act with cold clarity, not those who crumble when outcomes slip away. Detachment gives you that clarity. It sharpens your judgment. It keeps your hand steady when others panic. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care selectively. You place your energy where it matters, not where it's wasted. You can love without losing yourself, lead without being enslaved by the opinions of your followers, and fight without being blinded by rage. Detachment gives you the ability to step back, to see the entire battlefield, while others drown in the chaos of their own emotions. This is what makes you untouchable. Imagine this. A man insults you, attempting to provoke a reaction. The average man responds with fire, anger, defensiveness, a desperate need to win the exchange. But the detached man does not flinch. His silence, his calmness, his lack of reaction is more devastating than 1,000 shouted words. Because when you cannot be provoked, you cannot be controlled. Detachment breaks the chains others try to wrap around you. Detachment also applies to success. When you tie your identity to winning, you make yourself fragile. One failure shatters you. But when you detach, you remain steady. Wins don't inflate you, and losses don't destroy you. Both become information, lessons to refine your strategy, not definitions of your worth. Detachment makes you dangerous because you become immune to the emotional highs and lows that cripple ordinary men. Even in relationships, detachment is the foundation of respect. When you cling, when you beg, when you fear loss, you project weakness. But when you can walk away, when you know that your value is not tied to anyone's presence, you command respect effortlessly. People sense when you don't need them, and paradoxically, that makes them want to stay. Because power attracts, desperation repels. Detachment is the line between the two, but detachment is not cold indifference. It's precision. It's knowing where to invest deeply and where to cut ties without hesitation. You are not numb, you are strategic. You see clearly what is yours to control, your actions, your discipline, your standards. and you release what is not yours, the opinions of others, the outcomes of battles, the shifting tides of fortune. This separation grants you leverage. While others burn themselves out fighting what they cannot change, you conserve your fire for the wars you will win. Think of a king on his throne. He does not chase every rumor, every whisper, every complaint. He detaches. He sees the bigger picture. He knows his role is not to respond to every distraction, but to focus on the matters that shape empires. You too must rule yourself this way. Detach from the noise. Detach from the trivial. Detach from the endless chase for validation. Rule your inner kingdom with calm authority, and the outer world will respect it. Detachment also protects you from manipulation. People cannot bait you if you refuse to bite. They cannot guilt you if you refuse to absorb their guilt. They cannot control you if you remain unmoved by their pressure. This is why detachment is feared. It makes you immune to tactics that work on nearly everyone else. And when you are immune, you are powerful. But let's be practical. How do you cultivate detachment? Start small. Detach from your phone for an hour. Detach from the need to respond instantly to every message. Detach from entertainment that eats your time but adds no value. Detach from people who drain your energy without replenishing it. Detach from outcomes by focusing on effort, not results. Each act of detachment is a reminder, I am in control of me, and nothing owns me but me. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Detachment ceases to feel like sacrifice. It feels like strength. You don't fear losing what was never truly yours to begin with. You don't fear the opinions of those who haven't walked your path. You don't fear solitude, because you've learned that solitude is the throne of the disciplined. And in that throne room of silence and clarity, you become dangerous, because nothing can be used against you. This is the paradox. By detaching, you gain more. The man who clings loses everything. The man who releases gains freedom, respect, and influence. Because when you no longer need, you are no longer controlled. You stand firm, a fortress in a world of crumbling foundations, and the world cannot help but bend around the fortress it cannot shake. Detachment is not withdrawal. It's dominance. It's mastery over yourself and the leash others try to put around your neck. Cut the leash, burn it, and walk forward with the calm authority of someone who owns himself completely. That is the value of detachment. It is not luxury, it is survival. It is not suggestion, it is command. The world bows not to the man who clings, but to the man who can walk away without hesitation. That is the essence of power. That is the essence of respect. Comment below. I am owned by nothing. Number 6. The ruthlessness of standards. Standards are the backbone of self-respect. Without them, you drift. With them, you dominate. They are the invisible lines you draw in every area of your life. Lines that say, this is the level I will live at, and I will accept nothing less. Most men fail not because they lack potential, but because they tolerate too little of themselves and too much from the world. A man with low standards becomes a man with no power. But a man with ruthless standards becomes a man who cannot be ignored. Think about this. Every time you compromise on your standards, you send a message to yourself. When you skip the workout, you promised yourself, you're telling your subconscious, my word means nothing. When you allow laziness to creep into your work, you're whispering, excellence is optional. When you let toxic people remain in your circle, you're declaring, my energy is negotiable. And with every one of these breaches, you chip away at your respect for yourself. The world doesn't have to disrespect you. You've already done it. Machiavelli taught that rulers must maintain the appearance of strength even when circumstances weaken them. But here's the deeper truth. If you live with uncompromising standards, you don't just appear strong, you become strong. Because standards are not just rules, they are the forge. They shape you into someone who commands loyalty, fear, admiration, and respect without asking for it. Standards are ruthless by nature. They don't bend to moods, excuses, or convenience. They demand that you rise to them, whether you feel like it or not. And this is the gift. They strip away softness. They strip away excuses. They strip away weakness until only iron remains. The man who enforces his standards becomes unyielding, and others feel it instinctively. They know he is not to be trifled with because he does not trifle with himself. Ask yourself, what are your standards for your health, your work, your relationships, your time, your mind? Do you treat your body like a temple or like a trash bin? Do you let your work drift into mediocrity or demand mastery from yourself? Do you surround yourself with disciplined, sharp minds or with those who drain and distract? Every choice reveals your standards, and your standards reveal your future. Consider your time. The most ruthless standard you can hold is how you spend it. Time is the currency of power. Waste it, and you bankrupt your influence. Guard it, and you multiply your leverage. Detach from trivial conversations, meaningless entertainment, and people who add no value. Protect your hours as if they were gold, because they are. Every man who has built an empire, whether in politics, war, or business, was ruthless with his time. And if you cannot master your calendar, you cannot master your life. Now, understand this. Enforcing standards is not about arrogance or perfectionism. It's about alignment. It's about ensuring that your daily actions honor the man you claim to be. If you call yourself disciplined, prove it in the gym, in your work, in your habits. If you call yourself powerful, prove it in your choices, your silence, your self-control. Standards transform identity into reality. Without them, you are just talk. And let's be brutally honest, standards will cost you. They will cost you comfort. They will cost you relationships. They will cost you opportunities that do not align. But what they give you in return is immeasurable. Clarity, respect, leverage, freedom. When people realize you are not willing to lower your standards, they stop testing you. When they see that you'd rather walk alone than compromise, they start respecting your presence. Standards filter your world the way a blade cuts away the unnecessary. What remains is pure, sharp, and worthy of your time. The danger lies in half standards. Men who claim to live by principles but abandon them under pressure. That inconsistency destroys credibility. The world watches closely. Your actions scream louder than your words. Either you uphold your standards consistently or you become forgettable. The disciplined man becomes legendary, not because he is perfect, but because he is consistent. Day after day, choice after choice, his standards remain immovable. And here's the Machiavellian twist. Standards also build perception. People assume you are as valuable as the standards you demand from yourself. If you live ruthlessly disciplined, if you walk with the sharpness of a man who knows what he will and will not accept, others believe you must be worth following. Why? Because very few can live this way. Rarity is power, and high standards are rare. Standards are also contagious. When you enforce them without compromise, those around you either rise to your level or remove themselves. Weak men cannot survive in the presence of ruthless standards. They expose their mediocrity. But strong men, disciplined women, and aligned allies will respect you more and sharpen themselves in your presence. By living with higher standards, you don't just elevate yourself, you elevate the entire environment. That is how leaders are made. But remember, standards are not a performance for others. They are an agreement with yourself. You don't enforce them to impress. You enforce them because you refuse to betray your own value. And when you live this way long enough, respect becomes inevitable. The world has no choice but to adjust to the man who refuses to adjust downward. So raise your standards in everything. Your body, your work, your circle, your habits, your words. Protect them fiercely. Enforce them consistently, and never apologize for them. Because standards are not just the foundation of respect, they are the essence of sovereignty. A man with no standards is a man with no power, but a man with ruthless standards is a man who commands the world. Comment below, my standards are unbreakable. Number 7. the cold authority of presence. Presence is the invisible crown that needs no introduction. It is not something you wear, it is something you radiate. The moment you enter a room, presence is the shift in atmosphere, the subtle silence, the small adjustment in posture, the unspoken acknowledgement that someone of weight has arrived. Presence is not charisma. Charisma is a performance. Presence is gravity. It cannot be faked, and it cannot be bought. It is the cumulative proof of discipline, silence, detachment, and standards lived without compromise. The man without presence is forced to chase. He raises his voice, demands attention, explains endlessly, and still goes unnoticed. The man with presence, on the other hand, commands without lifting a finger. He does not demand respect. The room offers it freely because it senses it has no other choice. This is cold authority, the authority of one who governs himself so completely that others cannot help but respond to him as though he already rules. Presence is not given, it is forged. It begins with discipline. Every workout finished, every promise kept, every distraction resisted builds an aura that others feel long before they understand why. Add silence, and presence deepens. Men who cannot sit in silence reveal their weakness. They scramble for noise to hide their emptiness. But the man who allows silence to stretch unsettles the entire room. People lean in closer, watch longer, and think harder about what he will say. When he finally speaks, his words carry twice the weight because they were not spilled carelessly. Restraint sharpens presence further. The man who reacts to every insult or provocation is a slave to others, but the man who restrains himself, who remains calm under pressure, projects control. That control intimidates because people instinctively respect what they cannot move. To stay unmoved is to show strength. To remain unbothered when tested is to display dominance without saying a word. Conflict reveals presence most brutally. A man without it must argue, defend, or overcompensate. His desperation betrays him. But a man with presence can remain calm, composed, still. His eyes alone carry the weight of a command. His silence becomes louder than their shouting. This is the kind of authority that breaks opponents not with force, but with doubt. Doubt creeps into the heart of anyone who realizes they cannot shake you. Presence is also perception. People measure you in every moment, your posture, your tone, your timing, your gaze. They may not do it consciously, but they weigh whether you are someone to follow, to fear, or to dismiss. Words matter less than the energy you carry. Do you walk like a man who respects himself? Do you stand as though you expect respect? Or do you hesitate, apologize with your body, and vanish into the background? Presence answers these questions long before your mouth opens. This is why presence is authority without begging. It does not need self-promotion. It does not need applause. It does not need approval. The weight of presence is self-evident. When you walk with it, others sense they are standing in the orbit of someone they cannot easily dismiss. And because people respect what is rare, presence becomes power. But presence is not permanent. It requires constant sharpening. Skip your discipline, compromise your standards, betray your boundaries, and your presence decays. It is not a medal you win once. It is a reflection of how you live each day. This is why so few men possess it. They want the respect of presence without paying the cost of discipline. But the cost cannot be avoided. You must pay daily with habits, with choices, with sacrifice. The rare man who pays that cost consistently becomes unforgettable. In a world of noise, his silence dominates. In a world of speed, his stillness terrifies. In a world of compromise, his standards tower. Presence is rare, and rarity commands value. A room full of restless men bends toward the one who carries stillness. A crowd full of voices leans toward the one who speaks only when necessary. The man who respects himself ruthlessly radiates a gravity that others cannot escape. Ask yourself this: when you walk into a room, Does the air change? Do people feel something before you say anything? Or do you dissolve into the background? If your presence is weak, it is because your discipline is weak, your standards are loose, or your silence is hollow. Presence is the mirror of your alignment. Fix the roots, and the aura grows naturally. Presence is not about crushing others or flexing control. It is about being so completely in command of yourself that no one can help but notice. It is about being the still point in a world of frantic movement. It is about being the man whose calm is more intimidating than another man's rage. The cold authority of presence is not noise, it is gravity. And gravity does not ask to be respected, it simply pulls. Be gravity. Live with such alignment that you bend the world without lifting a hand. Do not seek attention. Do not beg for approval. Do not dilute yourself to be liked. Stand still, sharpen yourself, govern your life, and let your presence announce who you are before your voice ever does. That is how you become untouchable. Comment below, my presence bends the world. Number 8. The iron will of sovereignty. Sovereignty is the highest form of self-respect. It is the state of ruling yourself so completely that no one else dares to rule you. A sovereign man is not tossed by every wind, not enslaved by opinion, not bent by circumstance. He lives on his own terms, and because he governs himself, he becomes ungovernable by others. Sovereignty is not about crowns or thrones, it is about mastery, and mastery begins inside. The iron will of sovereignty is forged in choice. Every day you are presented with temptations, distractions, compromises. The weak man bends. He gives in to comfort, sells his time cheaply, lets his emotions drag him into chaos. But the sovereign man does not bend. His will is iron. He decides once, and he follows through relentlessly. He treats his own word as law. This makes him dangerous because others realize quickly that he cannot be moved by persuasion, bribery, or manipulation. Machiavelli understood sovereignty well. He advised rulers to be feared rather than loved if they had to choose, because fear is more reliable. But here is the deeper truth. The sovereign man does not even need to cultivate fear. His will alone creates a natural barrier that others respect. They may not love him, they may not even like him, but they cannot help but acknowledge his authority, and in acknowledgement they bow. The iron will of sovereignty is not loud. It is not the will of a tyrant who must scream to maintain order. It is the quiet, steady will of someone who has drawn lines within himself and never crosses them. When you refuse to break your own standards, when you live with ruthless integrity, when you demand excellence from yourself first, you project sovereignty outward. People sense that your rules are real, not flexible. They sense that you do not need their approval to enforce them. And here is the paradox. Sovereignty attracts loyalty. People follow a sovereign man not because he needs them, but because his strength offers them security. In a world of chaos, sovereignty is a fortress, and men crave fortresses. Your iron will become a refuge for others, even if they cannot articulate why. They will trust you more than they trust themselves, because your discipline shows them you will not betray your path. But sovereignty must be defended. It will be tested constantly. Life will push against your lines, try to tempt you into compromise, lure you into weakness. People will test you, not always with malice, but with curiosity, wanting to know if you really are as unbending as you appear. Most fail here. They give in once, and the illusion of their authority collapses. But the sovereign man holds, even under pressure, even when it costs him. Even when standing firm means standing alone, because sovereignty without sacrifice is nothing but performance. The iron will of sovereignty also means detachment from outcomes. A ruler cannot be shaken every time fortune turns against him. Likewise, you cannot base your sense of power on temporary wins or losses. Sovereignty is rooted deeper. It says, win or lose, I remain. Prosperity or hardship, I remain. Alone or surrounded, I remain. This is why sovereignty commands respect. It shows permanence in a world addicted to transience. But sovereignty is not cruelty. It is not domination for the sake of domination. It is alignment. It is the discipline of saying, I belong to myself, and I refuse to betray that. You govern your actions, your time, your energy, as if they were a kingdom entrusted to you. That kingdom grows stronger each time you enforce your standards, and soon, others begin to treat you as they would a sovereign, carefully, respectfully, aware of the consequences of overstepping. Ask yourself, do you rule yourself, or do you let others rule you? Do you bend your schedule to every request? Do you compromise your values to avoid conflict? Do you betray your vision to satisfy someone else's comfort? Every time you do, you give away sovereignty. Every time you stand firm, you reclaim it. And the more you reclaim, the more unshakable you become. The iron will of sovereignty is not for the faint. It demands solitude, it demands sacrifice, it demands walking away from those who cannot respect your kingdom. But what it gives in return is priceless. Freedom. Freedom from manipulation, freedom from need, freedom from the endless chase for approval. And freedom is the soil where true respect grows. So live like a sovereign, govern yourself with iron, enforce your standards like law, protect your energy like a fortress, demand excellence from yourself as if your life depends on it, because it does. And watch how the world begins to treat you, not as a man to be ignored, but as a ruler in his own right. That is sovereignty. That is untouchable power. Number 9. The untouchable man. The untouchable man is not born. He is forged. Forged in discipline, silence, detachment, ruthless standards, cold presence, and iron sovereignty. Every principle you've heard until now is not a suggestion. It is the blueprint. The untouchable man is the one who has taken these laws and lived them so ruthlessly that the world can no longer deny him. He is beyond the reach of cheap insults, beyond the grip of manipulation, beyond the fear of loss. His life is not swayed by the winds of opinion or the storms of fortune. He stands immovable. To be untouchable is not to be invincible. You will bleed, you will fail, you will suffer. But the difference is this: the untouchable man cannot be broken, because when he falls, he does not shatter, he sharpens. When he loses, he does not collapse, he learns. When others betray him, he does not crumble, he continues. Every setback is fuel, every failure is information, every scar is a mark of his resilience. And resilience is what makes him untouchable. Machiavelli would call this the highest form of power, to shape how others must treat you, not by demand, but by inevitability. The untouchable man forces the world to respect him because he respects himself with uncompromising ferocity. He does not need pity, does not beg for validation, does not seek applause. He demands nothing, and yet he receives everything, because power gravitates toward the one who cannot be moved. The untouchable man builds himself daily. His discipline is not a phase, it is his foundation. His silence is not weakness, it is his weapon. His detachment is not indifference, it is his shield. His standards are not arrogance, they are his law. His presence is not performance, it is his gravity. His sovereignty is not cruelty, it is his freedom. Put these together and you create something rare. Something people cannot manipulate, cannot dismiss, cannot ignore. Understand this: to be untouchable is not to live without enemies. In fact, it guarantees them. People fear what they cannot control. They envy what they cannot break. They resent what they cannot diminish. But the untouchable man does not bend to envy, fear, or resentment. He remains cold, calm, and unshaken. He does not lower himself to fight in the mud. He lets others exhaust themselves while he remains steady, waiting, watching, ready to strike only when it matters. That is why he always wins, not because he fights every battle, but because he chooses only the battles worth his steel. The untouchable man's greatest weapon is consistency. While others burn hot and fade, he burns steady. While others collapse under pressure, he endures. While others chase approval, he governs himself. This steadiness makes him immortal in reputation. Even when he is absent, his presence is felt. Even when he is silent, his voice echoes. Even when he is tested, his will remains iron. People may not always love him, but they will always respect him. And this is the final truth. Respect is the currency of power. Money fades, status shifts, fame dies, but respect endures. When you are untouchable, you hold respect like a fortress. Others may try to storm it, but they will break themselves against its walls. That fortress is built brick by brick through the choices you make daily. The untouchable man is simply the man who never stopped building. So ask yourself, are you living like clay, soft and shapeless, molded by the hands of others? Or are you living like iron, forged in fire, unyielding to every hand that tries to bend you? The untouchable man has chosen. He has chosen sovereignty over submission, discipline over indulgence, silence over noise, standards over compromise, presence over invisibility, resilience over weakness. That choice has made him rare. And rarity in this world is power. If you want to become untouchable, begin now. Respect yourself so ruthlessly that others have no choice but to follow suit. Cut away the softness, burn away the excuses, forge yourself until your very existence demands recognition. Do this long enough, and one day you will look in the mirror and realize you no longer chase respect. Respect chases you. That is the untouchable man, and that is the man you must become. Comment below, I am untouchable. And if this message cut deep, if it sharpened something inside you, then don't just leave quietly. Like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because every word here is designed to forge you into what the world cannot break.